All right, welcome back everyone. This is the Happy Toolbox, and today I'll be going over part one of a two-part tutorial series in which I show you my personal pipeline on how I like to stylistically 3D model assets. Part two of this tutorial will come next week. It's going to be way more detailed about how I like to 3D model inside of Cinema 4D. Part one of this tutorial, which you're going to see now, is more about how I conceptualize things and how I come up with my reference material for when I start 3D modeling. You know, for hyper-real 3D modeling, you can just go outside and take a photo of a car, but for a stylized car, it's a lot more interpretive. So this is the way I deal with that. So let's get started. So you can see on the left-hand side here, I have a program called Procreate open. I'm just screen recording my iPad right now. Procreate is an awesome sketching program. If you haven't had the chance to use it, you can do a lot more realistic stuff than this in there, but this is what I use it for. And on the right-hand side, I have our website pulled up. And what I want to do is just show you, these are obviously sketches I made when I was first thinking of the city pack. So if I go over to our city pack and scroll down, you will see some familiar objects in here. So right here we have the fence barrier, the hot dog cart. So you can see I follow this sketch pretty much to a T, and it just helps me know exactly what I want to 3D model and the shapes I want to build these things out of once I dive into Cinema 4D. So let's go ahead and open a new canvas in Procreate. I'm going to rotate it so I have it the right direction I like. And over here, I already have an image picked out. So I have this Land Rover, this really cool vintage Land Rover. And you can bring this into Procreate. I could drag this image inside of it and I could trace it, etc. But what I think is really valuable is using your own eyes to look at lines and shapes that build up this object on the right-hand side. So rather than perfectly tracing over this, which will basically just give you the same reference as the photo, you begin to draw the rough shapes and outlines of what you think this looks like. So I'm going to pick some blue, going to grab my HB pencil over here, and I'm just going to start sketching. So I always like to kind of work in an isometric-y look. Let's just start with the top. If you draw in Procreate and kind of pull your pencil and then hold, it'll actually create a straight line. So you can see it's kind of adjusting there. Let's just start like this. And then this back is kind of rounded out. So I'm going to go down. Pull that out. Front windshield's kind of angled. And there's kind of this line that goes all the way across the whole object, rounds out back here. And then the tires are going to go kind of about here. Maybe that's too far. I'm actually going to bring this whole thing down, scale it down a little bit. Whoops. So I have enough room. This tire is about there. Kind of have the line that goes between the tires, stops a little bit short beforehand, curves over. Then you have these two nice front pieces here. I like the shapes of those a lot. And then it kind of gets inset backwards. Let's make an inset piece. And finally, that bumper piece. And I'm just doing this really quick for you guys, just so you can get an idea. And then up top, we want to make sure and have that iconic kind of hood shape going on up here. So maybe I'll extend this a little bit. Pull it over. And this is already looking good. I think the main key to stylized 3D models, at least the way I like to do it, I don't do a lot of squashing and stretching of different pieces and parts. But I think sketching it out in simple lines really helps you get down to the gist of what these individual objects are made up of. Like there, like this is a good example. So instead of doing these two tiny little lights, I'm just going to make 2 circles. Instead of this really advanced grate, I'm just going to make simple lines there. More simplified tires. And then instead of doing kind of this complex windshield we got going on here, I'm just going to end up doing this one piece. So I know what the lines are. I'm going to pull this forward. And I like to work like this. You can see I'm getting really sketchy over here. And as you notice kind of in the pieces before this, I then make a new layer and I go over top of this and kind of fine line it so I know exactly what I'm doing. So let's say I have this car like this. Let's say I'm happy with this. I would probably, do some other stuff here. But let's say I'm happy with that. What I really like about Procreate too is you can go into this selection mode. And while I'm still kind of in this sketchy phase, maybe I take this front piece, I select it, and I go to warp. And so here I can kind of pull points. Maybe I want the front of this car to be more like comically tiny, and the top portion is a lot bigger. So I pull these points in, if I can grab them. And we get something like that. So now I have a much more small front end, larger back end, and maybe I'll even extend that a little bit more. Actually, no, I'm going to keep it like that. I don't really like to crazy squash and stretch things. I like it to still be fairly uniform overall. So from there, I would just go in, pick another color, maybe come up to inking, grab a technical pen, create a new layer, and then kind of start fine lining this. So I'll kind of speed ramp some of this stuff so you guys don't have to sit through all this. Okay, so there you have it. On the left hand, after that speed ramp, you'll see our final lines versus the right hand side photo. If I go in our layers and I turn on that blue sketch I did first, you'll notice some of the lines I chose to take out, some of the things I chose to put in, like the windshield wipers, the bars on top, a few bolts, etc. And I think this technique is really great because it allows your brain kind of through your hand onto your sketch pad to make almost a poor photocopy of this photo you're seeing. And I think stylized objects and geometry are all about finding what are the fewest lines and shapes that build up this real world object that I can 3D model or sketch and get across that same idea of that object while creating more of a stylized look. So go ahead and give this a shot. Again, I find it very helpful. And now we have this awesome stylized Range Rover that we can have as our reference for when we begin to 3D model this next week. If you'd like this video and subscribe to the channel, that would help us out a ton. We're shooting for a tutorial every week. And as always, if you're interested in any 3D assets, head on over to thehappytoolbox.com. We have over 500 models and counting. All right, I'll see you next week for part 2.